Hello, hello, people. All right, let me get situated here. All right, I'll give people time to join. I'm sorry this is almost at the same time as the national championship, but I'm gonna try and be a little quicker than last time, so hopefully you won't miss too much if you're gonna watch it. So my beer this week and the next 5 weeks is sponsored by oh, hey, what's up? The beer this week, Brew Public actually provided me with some beers for this week and the next 5 weeks, so I'm really excited. It's this company in Charlotte where you tell them what kind of beer you like, and then they'll deliver craft beer to your door. So it's really cool. I really like it. And the beer this week is Coffee for Closers. It is from Full Steam Brewery in Durham, North Carolina. And I told them I love porters, and I'm really liking porters and stouts lately. And so this was one of the ones they selected for me because I love coffee. Oh, hey. Oh, cool. Hello from Michigan. And oh, cool. Someone used to float up to my unit. Oh, great. Okay, so I'm just going to get my beer ready. I got this beer glass. I don't know if this is the right beer glass for this kind of beer, but I don't really care. It's the only beer glass we have. Hey, what's up from Ohio? Great. Okay, so today I'm going to chat about time management. And what I'm going to do is I have the camera farther away, so I can't really see the questions. So I'm going to go through everything, and if I see a question, I'll try to answer it. But if I don't answer your question, ask it at the end, because I'm going to have a little Q&A session. Oh my God, look at that, guys. Oh, that looks beautiful. Oh, okay. So, and if you're enjoying, the beer that I'm having is Coffee for Closers again. It's an iced coffee porter from Durham, North Carolina, the Full Steam Brewery. And it is cold pressed in-house with 100% Sumatra beans. So yeah, I'm really excited to try it. So what I'm gonna do is I have some stuff I'm gonna go through, and then if I don't answer any questions that you have, hang on to them, and then I'll go over them at the end, because I really want to make sure I address everybody's questions. And if I do not answer your question, I'm gonna post notes about this sometime this week on my blog, and I will make sure every question gets answered if it's not in this video through my notes, okay? So I gotta have a sip of my beer first. Hold on. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so ICU time management. What is it and why does it matter? So as a nurse, when you walk onto your shift, you are responsible for such an exorbitant amount of tasks that you can't just put your head down and just do task after task. You have to go about it with a kind of a plan and with intention, or else you're going to be chasing your tail all day. And things that need to be addressed aren't going to get addressed in the best manner possible. So, you know, those questions on the NCLEX, they ask, you know, what would you do first? What would you prioritize? You know, but they don't really ask you what you do 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and then when 7th and 8th needs to be moved to 1 and 2, and then 1 goes to heck, and you know, so they don't really, I don't think you get a lot of practical information about that just from passing the NCLEX, so I just want to provide some. So this is specific for ICU, and there's time management for every kind of unit. I mean, the time management that exists in the ED is very different than the ICU, than the floor, than other units. So the reason the ICU, it's pretty different because it's so dynamic. Things change in an instant. And one of the things they don't talk about in school is staffing changes in an instant. So you could go from having your 2 patients, but then this other patient comes in the door that needs CRRT, and maybe you're the only one that can do that, or that can take care of that kind of a patient. So you've got to immediately give up your 2 patients and pick up the CRRT patient. So it's really, really important to have some sort of grasp on time management. And if your preceptor isn't so great at time management, you know, you don't really learn how to manage your time well. So the point that what I'm going to go through is to really give you a starting point, because time management is very different for people. You may decide, I don't like doing this first, I would rather do this or this, and that's fine as long as things get done in a timely manner and you're not constantly behind and not constantly checking out or clocking out late. If you're constantly clocking out late and other people aren't, maybe there's something that you can tweak to be more efficient, because efficiency is key. So keep in mind, these are suggestions. You do not have to do these. This isn't like you have to do this. These are some suggestions. So this is kind of, and when I'm giving tips, just kind of assume I'm working with having 2 patients. I know you can have 3, 4 even. Oh God, I hope you never have 4 ICU patients, or 1, but just assume I have 2. So the first thing that I really want to talk about is I can't underestimate, or I can't really describe how important a report is. You really want to maximize that 30 minutes that you get and really start your shift off right. No, even if you come in and your patients are totally fine and they're caught up from the night nurse and everything's okay, the first couple hours of your shift you should be moving kind of quickly and with a sense of urgency to get yourself ahead. Staying ahead is constantly important, because you never know what's going to happen next, not only with your patients but with your coworkers' patients too. So during report, when I'm getting a report, I always am maximizing that time by, when I'm talking to the nurse, I'm looking at all of my orders and I'm kind of getting a mental plan of my day. Okay, I see I've got a CT at 2 p.m. I see I've got to change my intraoral tube feeding line at by 4 p.m. And while I'm looking at orders, I'm looking at the patient. I'm also going over to my IVs or my fluid bags. Okay, I'm going to need some more Levofed in maybe 2 hours. I've got to keep that in mind when I'm moving around the unit. I'm going to have to get the Levofed in less than 2 hours. Like that kind of stuff. So keep your eye on that kind of stuff when you're in report, so you can kind of get your mind around things that you're going to have to do in the next 2 hours. And I think it's really important to stay on top of your IV fluids and your drips. I mean, obviously I have to stay on top of them, but just so that you're not responding to IV pumps, beeps, to replace bags, because that's taking you away from another task or taking you from something else and addressing this thing that you could have done while you were consolidating with another task. So that's what I like to keep in mind when I'm getting report is, okay, I've got a couple hours here, I've got to do this, I've got a blood draw in a little bit. So you're getting your mind around the upcoming tasks. And what I think is really important too is before you, while you're getting report, check your meds to make sure they've all been given and scanned. I hate that when you're getting report and you don't take a look at the chart, and then the nurse you're getting report from leaves, and they're a really good nurse and they don't usually forget things, and all of a sudden you see the 6 o'clock heparin wasn't given, but it's like, oh, they usually give that. So now I got to stop what I'm doing and call them, see if they gave it. Do I still need to give it? What was the reason? So make sure you're looking at the chart with the last nurse to make sure all the orders are caught up, to make sure all of the meds that have been given have been scanned, because things happen and maybe something timed out or maybe there was an emergency and they actually didn't get it. So you got to make sure that kind of stuff. It's the fastest if you can just do it while you're getting a report. So I talked about, so while you're doing this, you're really getting your head around your day. You don't really necessarily have to write it all down unless you really want to, but it just gives you kind of an idea. And I think it's really another key piece, another time-saving piece is learning to give and get report efficiently. I think it takes a little while to figure out how to do it, but I try to give report as concisely as possible and provide as much information as possible in the shortest amount of time, so that if they really do have questions, we can go over them, but I want to be able to maximize that time for myself and for them. So when I'm getting report, I also wait to ask any questions until that nurse is completely done talking. So, because they may answer what I'm going to ask within what they're saying, it just might not be in the order in which I'm used to it or I like to receive report in. So I wait until they're done. And I also do, you figure out who's kind of long-winded and who's not. And if I try to not ask questions that I can easily get the answers to in the chart. So if I know someone's long-winded and I'm like, hey, so what IV lines do they have? I mean, I can easily see that from the chart, I don't necessarily need to ask that. If it's someone that's going to give me a quick answer, then that's fine. But if it's someone that's going to give me like this long story about how the lines were started and how long we've had it, then I don't worry about asking that kind of stuff. But if you can easily get it out of the chart, and when you're already looking there anyway, because you're going to have to chart on something, just don't even worry about asking those questions, because that's just going to take up more time. So another important thing to do is when you're done giving report, drop the mic and leave. Don't hang out. You're going to feel like you need to help and do stuff, but my little soapbox is that, not only in the ICU, but in every unit, nursing care is continual. It would be great if we could just give our patients to the next shift with everything completed, everything done, but that doesn't happen. We're continually taking care of the patients. So if you have noticed that, your patient got here an hour ago and they're a new sepsis admission, you can't really expect the last nurse to really complete that entire order set before you take over. Sometimes there's going to be stuff that's not done, that's just part of kind of being a nurse and taking care of this continual process of caring for patients. Now, if there's someone that is constantly leaving stuff for the next shift to do because they're lazy and don't want to do it, that's a totally different thing. But I don't think that we should be upset if we're receiving a patient that had an order put in within the last 30 minutes, that there's no way to really reasonably expect the last nurse to complete. They should be able to get out on time. Especially if you're not starting your day with this crazy admission or something like that. If there was an order for a blood draw put in at 6:40, I don't expect the previous nurse to do that. I'm going to take care of that, just like I would expect that from me too. So that's just my little caveat about continual care. So report can't say enough about how you want to make that efficient and maximize that time and look at the chart pretty in depth and get your mind around your day. Another tip is to consolidate things constantly. It is much faster to go in one room and complete 4 tasks instead of going one room, like get an 8 o'clock meds here, 8 o'clock meds here, turn here, assess here. That's inefficient. It's completely inefficient. You want to make sure you're consolidating your tasks so that you can get as much done in each room as possible. Because every time you go in, you got to put on gloves, you got to wash your hands, you got to tell the family or the patient what you're going to do. And if you go in there once and do 4 things, it's much better than going from room to room. So it's better to complete like most tasks either early or maybe even, closer to a little late than one task on time and everything late, if that makes sense. So look where you can consolidate things constantly, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. And I think it's really important to be proactive with educating patients and families at the beginning of the day and whenever you're going to come back, to cut down on those unnecessary call lights. To ask questions that could be easily answered, or if they knew you were going to come back in the next 20 minutes, that they could have just waited a little bit. So usually whenever I leave the room, I try to do a little estimation to say, hey, I'm going to hopefully be back in about 20 minutes. And I'm going to hopefully, address whatever, or, so they can have in their mind, they have an idea of when you're going to come back, or when maybe even the CNA is going to round in and take their temperature or something. Any little bit of routine that you can give these patients and their families is essential. They're constantly stressed, constantly worried. They don't know what to expect. But if they know, like every time you come in, you're like, oh, a CNA is a certified nursing assistant or a patient care tech. Not all places use them, but they're nurses' aides, essentially. So you want to provide these people as much routine structure that you can, because all of that's been taken from their life. So you want to make sure that you're providing that as much as you can, and then that will hopefully cut down on the call lights about, oh my gosh, I can't believe blah, 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 can you come address this? Okay, so kind of makes sense. Something that a lot of people don't think about with time management is increasing your efficiency with charting. If you look at whenever they have those pie graphs of what nurses spend most of their time doing, a huge chunk of it is documentation. And documentation doesn't have to take forever. I mean, it does, It does take forever sometimes just because of all the things we have to document, but if you can look for ways to make it more efficient, that is going to save you some precious time with like your patients, completing tasks, educating, whatever. So look for ways to do things in the least amount of clicks possible. Something that I like to do is when I know at the beginning of the day that I'm going to see my patient, okay, I'm doing my first assessment on my patient, and I notice some abnormals, but I know I've got some pressing stuff I've got to do, but I don't want to forget this stuff. So I'll go into the chart real quick and timestamp for whatever time it is, and I'll only chart the abnormals. Okay, he's got coarse lungs, he's got 1+ pulses, and he's confused. And I'll just put those 3 things in. I won't put in all of the full assessment, all the stuff. I'll just put in those few things so that I know, I remember it, I don't have to write it down, and I can go back later in the day and fill in the kind of mindless, I chart the same thing on everybody, he's wearing, his non-skid socks or whatever. So that's kind of one way I can increase efficiency in charting. So if you see someone knows how to look at something or chart something quicker, or has a different way of like looking at their flow sheets or whatever, adapt and change the way you do things. Just because you were taught in your original training this is the way you do stuff or the way it's done, that doesn't mean the way that's going to be the best way that it stays, I guess, because that stuff is constantly updated and changed and improved. So if you can kind of pay attention to those emails or communications that tell you updates with the software and, hey, this is now in this location of the chart, pay attention to those because they can really help you find things faster. There's multiple ways to find a CT scan, and maybe you take the longest way to find the CT scan, but maybe on your home screen there's a place to click the latest one. Like little examples of stuff like that can really add up throughout the day. So and that doesn't mean chart less. That doesn't mean you need to cut out what you're charting. That just means to increase your efficiency. So there's a big difference there. And something, if your facility allows you to do this, copy and paste is very helpful, and it cuts off a lot of time if you're allowed to do this, and only copy and paste your own work. So what I'll do when I do my morning assessment, let's say I'm doing an 8 o'clock, I will copy and paste it to my 12 o'clock, and then I will go through and make the changes. I'm not going through and putting in a whole new assessment. I'm copying and pasting and going through and making the changes that are appropriate. That saves a ton of time. And then my next thing, a little caveat thing, other than stay ahead all the time, is when the chaos ensues, because it will, if it's not your patients, it's going to be your coworkers, and you're so overwhelmed with all of these new tasks you have to do, it is really important to not just put your head down and go, and just, okay, I'm just going to do as much as I can, as quick as I can. No, that's not the best way to go about it, because you're going to get so overwhelmed. The stuff that should have been done first won't be, because you weren't able to just hold on a sec. So I think it's really important when you're getting overwhelmed with smacked in the face with 20 million tasks is to stop, take a breath, and think about, and chug, yes. Stop and take a breath and think about who needs me the most right now. So I know I've got a family member on hold. I've got CT waiting for me to come down there. I've got the wife of my patient that is in pain and needs 2 milligrams of IV morphine, and I can feel her staring daggers at me. But I also have my other patient that has an intracerebral hemorrhage, and he's hypertensive, and I need to start a cardiac drip. So sorry CT, sorry lady, sorry other patient, I got to start this heparin drip, because if I let my ICH patient continue to be hypertensive, he's going to rebleed. So none of those other people understand my priorities, and I think that's something that I, at the beginning of being a nurse, not just being an ICU nurse, I really had, you constantly have people come up to you all day, every day, and they have their task list and what's the most important thing to them. And they come to you with this sense of urgency, hey, I need blank. But they don't understand or know your task list and your priorities for your patients, both of your patients. So you know in your mind the things that you need to do, and it's your responsibility to constantly monitor and intervene and notify the physician of all these things that might be going on. And maybe the physical therapist that really wants to get your other patient up doesn't really understand the fact that I have got to go get this cardine drip now. I can't sit here and help you do this, even though this is the last person on your list before you go to lunch. So I think it's really important to be unapologetically confident, and you do kind of have to advocate for yourself and therefore your patients. Like, hey, I need you to, or you have to think of a really respectful way to say it. Hey, I understand that you have this going on, but I really have to go address this. And once I'm done with this, I will come help you do whatever. And I think it's important to be able to do that. It's hard at first, but then usually if a nurse says, I've got an urgent situation I've got to deal with, usually they back right off and they're okay. Some people aren't, and that's fine. They don't have to be, and I don't need them to be. I just know I need to get whatever's done to go do this. And I'll be nice and I'll be respectful, but I'm also going to be kind of straightforward. Hey, I've got someplace I've got to be. And usually if a nurse says that, people back off, but you know, not everybody does. So those are my little tips. I also want to give you kind of a sample morning time management that I would do with my patients, and how I would go, because I think if you start your day off right, you kind of set yourself up to have the rest of the shift kind of fall into place, so that if something comes your way and you have to be in a room, let's say your coworker's patient codes and you're in the room helping him or her for an hour, if you were waiting around kind of having coffee, hanging out, and not staying on top of those other tasks you could have been, now you're extremely behind, as opposed to kind of, you know, you're okay. So, and that's a good point. If you start behind, you usually don't recover, and then you clock out late. And, you know, who wants to clock out late every night? You want to try to do whatever you can to not do that. So when I come in the morning and I see I have my two patients, I go print off their telemetry strips, take a look at their vitals real quick on the monitor. And then I'll go, and let's just say my report is from 6:45 to 7:15. Let's just, you know, say that. So from 6:45 to 7, and let's say everybody's on time and the night shift nurse is ready to give me a report and everything like that. Let's say all the stars align. And I know this rarely happens. I know half the time you come in and one patient's coding, or one patient has to go off the floor for some emergent procedure. But I think it's really important to have if everything's going right, this is what you're supposed to do. And that way, if something does throw you off and then you get it taken care of, you know where to go back to in your routine, if that makes sense. So this is your, if everything's going right, kind of routine. So I get my tele strips and I go into my first patient and get a report. Let's say it takes the 15 minutes. We'll split report right in half. Let's say it takes from 6:45 to 7 to get a report on that patient. While I'm in there, like I said before, I'm paying attention to my lines, how much is left of all my drips and everything like that. And then before I leave the room, I take a peek at my next patient to see if they have any meds that are due around 7. John's coming down the stairs. He just put Hannah down to bed. So you want to say hi to everybody, John?
Hey y'all. Sorry if you hear a baby crying in the background.
She's hopefully falling asleep right now. So I get report from 6:45 to 7:15, and then I'm peeking to see, rarely do you have meds due between 7 and 8, but I do take a little peek to see if my patient has a med that I need to get on right away for both of them, actually. So before I walk out of the room with patient 1, I say to the patient, if they're awake, and to the family, it's nice to meet you. My name's Kati. I'm going to be taking care of your loved one today. I'm going to go get a report on my other patient, and I will be back in a little bit, and I will, go over kind of everything in our plan for the day, which is code for don't put on your call light in the next 30 minutes unless it's an emergency or you really need something, because I am coming back. And not only am I coming back, I'm doing something kind of important, and I really would like to not be interrupted. Not everybody reads through the lines, but that's kind of, you know, my little spiel to not bother me for a little bit. So then you go into your next patient. I go into patient 2. I get report, same thing while I'm doing, you know, getting report. I'm looking at my lines, I'm looking at my orders, my meds, yada, yada, yada. I tell the night shift nurse, get out of here. Thank you for your help, blah, blah, blah. Have a great day. Then while I stay in the room with patient 2, I level my lines. I give my normal, hi, my name's Kati. This is our plan for the day. And I know the plan for the day because I've already looked at all the orders. And I tell them kind of what's going on. And I do a full assessment. And if there was a 7:30 med, I'd give it. But there usually isn't. And I think that's all I'm doing at that point. Yeah. Checking my alarm settings, making sure they reflect the order appropriately. As much as you love and trust your coworkers, don't trust them with that. It is easily it can be easily missed. Let's say this patient got here 2-3 hours ago and they did not change the alarm setting to reflect the order of this patient. That happens sometimes. People forget stuff, and it's really important to make sure that the alarm settings are appropriate for whatever the order is. So it's really important to check that at the beginning of the day and make that part of your routine. So those are the kind of the things I do, and then I chart. I go in the chart, and then I put my abnormals, like I was talking earlier. Okay, you know, he was confused, peripheral pulses were off, his, you know, I don't know what else my exceptions are. Maybe he's an AFib or something. And I just chart those. It kind of time stamps for when I did that assessment. Then before I leave that room, I check in my chart on patient 1, and I see what meds I have, my 8 and 9 o'clocks for my other patient. And then I look and see if there's anything up until about 9, like a blood draw, or if I need to start a new IV or anything like that. And I make sure that on my way back to that the other room, I get all my meds, I get all my supplies and everything before I go back in the room. So then I go back in patient 1, and then I do my full assessment, oral care, turn, looking at, you know, making sure all my lines are good, when I got to change them, or change them then if I need to, and then level my lines, check my monitor, and then as soon as 8 o'clock hits, I scan all my 8 and 9 o'clock meds and I give them. Then, let's see, yep, and then before I leave that room, I check patient 2 to see the same thing. What meds do I need? What supplies do I need? Where are they located? And then I go get those, and then I go back to the second room. And then I do my full, I already did my full assessment. I give all my meds because it's time now. It's like after 8, so I can give all my 8 and 9s. And if I had a blood draw, if I had anything else, I do it then. And then I actually sit down and chart all of that. And I forgot to say with that last patient, I usually by that time I will be able to sit down and chart the whole assessment and everything that I need to chart for the beginning of the day. And then, so that keep in mind, I've already done that with the other patient. And then when I'm back in room 2, I've given all my 8s and 9s. I chart that full assessment that I did, you know, whatever half an hour ago it was. And I get everything situated, the turn, the oral care, all the meds, all the lines look good. Everything is completely done. And then I leave the room, and then I go chart those 2 telemetry strips, and then I go open up their charts, and I make sure I read the last note that each physician made, and and if I have time, I read the last note of like the physical therapist if I'm thinking about getting them up that day, or the social worker if there's some family stuff I need to be aware of. So if everything went perfectly fine, usually I can be done. If you're really efficient and you don't have to like crush and, you know, flush meds down a Dobhoff tube one at a time, you can be done by 9:15 at the like latest. So I'm completely charted. My patients are charted, medicated, turned, and rounded on and completely taken care of by 9 something. So that gives you a ton of time, up to 45 minutes of before your 9 o'clock would be late. So that is kind of how I would organize my day at the beginning of the day. And then you have your full assessment totally charted, all of your meds given. So when you go back at 12 and you do an assessment, you can just copy and paste and just change the things that need to be changed. So that is my sample time management. And then I think I discussed everything. Oh, the only thing I wanted to make sure that I talked about too is when things go down and things go crazy. I usually have 2 patients, but frequently it's been 3. It just kind of depends. It really depends on staffing, but typically 2, hopefully. So something that's really important though is when you have, you're in the ICU, it's really important to function as a team because any patients could go downhill at any time and you have to help each other out. So when your patient's going downhill and you need to delegate to other nurses and you don't know what to delegate, think about delegating a lot of the really tasky stuff that you don't have to explain and take time to explain. So can you start an IV for me? Can you draw a PTT? Can you draw a CBC, a BMP, or whatever, as opposed to, can you release my orders for me? Can you page the doctor for me? Can you go tell this family blank? Like that kind of stuff, you should do your own stuff. You should do yourself. So you don't have to really explain stuff. So, or like releasing orders. You should be reviewing the orders anyway. Why should they review them and you review them? Like you should review them and then delegate some other task. So those are all of my notes and the things I was planning on talking about. And I don't think I really read fast enough to see any of the questions. So if anybody had any questions, go ahead and type those out and we'll do those for a few minutes and then I'll let you guys, go so you can watch the game. It looks like it started. And don't forget to put in what beer you had. So when do I bathe patients? I touch base with my CNA at the beginning of the day and see when it's on their radar for time management. I love to do it at the beginning of the shift if I can. And I work with some really efficient CNAs. So usually when I'm doing those roundings, if everything's going okay, then I will do them then to get them out of the way. Because again, you never know what's going to happen. So the earlier I can do a bath, the better. So I'll try to sneak them in at that time, but that doesn't always work, but it also depends on the time management of the CNA and when they're working in their other baths. So sometimes I'll try to do it around the 8 o'clock, but if that doesn't work, I'll focus on getting my stuff done and then do it at 12 o'clock. Nice. I just tried that one recently. It was delicious. I don't really end of shift. Do I have an end of shift routine to make sure I don't miss anything? I do like that when baths are done on night shift, by the way. I know it's kind of more work for night shift, but then you're not kicking people out in the middle of the day. So at the end of the shift, I do double check my orders to make sure I'm not leaving my night shift nurse with anything. I usually double check all of my I's and O's. I never try Colt 45. No, I actually have never had that. Is that like Miller Lite or something? Let's see. Yeah, I really go over a lot of the stuff that I'm about to tell them and report so that I'm not like, oh crap, I should have taken them for a CT. Oh my gosh, or whatever. I usually will do that, and then I will also check all of the notes of the physicians that rounded that day if I hadn't already, to make sure whatever orders they put in were put in that they said. So I'm not relying on this night shift nurse and report where it's like, oh gosh, we should have addressed that earlier. I should have noticed that earlier. So just checking over your orders and your medications. I really do that. I think about the things I'm going to tell somebody and report. Yes, I am. Absolutely. I am a proponent of giving meds early at time, especially, you got to think about the meds. If I'm given a Colace an hour early, that doesn't really matter. But if it's like a heart medication, now you got to keep in mind, technically you're not really supposed to give meds early, but you can retime them. I believe you're allowed to retime them, but especially if something is about to happen, or I think, this patient's not doing well, I think I'm not going to be able to get in there, I will definitely give meds early to be able to be free for this later, especially those daily medications where it really doesn't matter to a degree what time they receive it. So I'm not like a huge stickler where I have to give it between these times. Yeah, some people are very touchy about that stuff, but a lot of times it really doesn't matter that much as long as they get it at some point during that day. So I'm not very particular about that stuff. especially when you think about the big picture. I just think that's something that's unnecessary to be particular about. So I'm kind of unapologetic about that. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, so stuff to get done at the beginning. So essential orders. Like I know there's an admission assessment and stuff, or not assessment of the patient, but you know, the admission kind of paperwork stuff. It kind of depends on how stable the patient is, but I just kind of really prioritize with like labs, getting an IV started, giving any pertinent meds. A big thing is making sure I have the essential orders, and touching base with the physician to make sure I have everything I need. It's not really realistic. Sometimes you get a patient and you get them there, they're stable and they're fine, and the doctor's not going to be around for another hour. But I try to get done as much as I can before. But again, it's totally unrealistic for you to expect for the night shift or the next shift to expect you to have everything done for an admission received at 6 p.m. when report is at 6:45. And I'm not going to let people make me feel bad for not getting every little thing done, because I think that's unrealistic to expect. So you just kind of look at the tasks and like really prioritize the time sensitive things. A lot of the times those are labs and administering medications and getting an IV or a line started. That's the really, really important stuff. So make sure those things are done. Anybody else? Is there anything you will tell night shift to do before they leave versus leaving it for you? It's so situational. The only thing I would ask them to do is, like a med is almost out, like lines and stuff. I think it's a common courtesy to do that for the next shift. If I think the person was really busy and they legitimately did not mean to leave me with a dry bag, then I'm not going to say anything. But I think that if you're getting left with a dry bag and they were just kicking it when you came in and sitting at the nurse's station, it's kind of like, hey, can you get me a new bag of Levofed? And saying it in really kind of a casual way. That's what I really think it's important to do. That it's just a common courtesy to not make somebody start out their shift tracking down bags and ordering stuff from pharmacy. And so how do you deal with that? Let me wait on. Oh, okay. So those are two good questions. So I want to make sure I go over both of them. So and no matter what, you're going to run into people that are trying to make you feel bad for not completing every little thing. And I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to make sure that I get as much done as possible, but it's not all humanly possible, nor is it realistic to expect of the previous shift to stay after report to complete things that weren't realistic to complete in the first place. And try not to let yourself feel bad about it. Don't take ownership for that. That is, you work your hardest to get what you can done, and that's all you can do. And if someone's going to try to make you feel bad about it, something else is going on with them. Don't bear that burden. That is not your responsibility. You're going to do your best, give report, and try. And part of it is really trying not to feel bad, and just do your best. And that's all they can ask for. You can't humanly do everything. Like I said before, care is continual, and if people expect you to stay to complete things, especially if there are other patients stable, they're going to have time. Like, I'm not going to bear that burden. I'm going to give you a report, and you're going to be a nurse and take care of patients like we do all the time. Sometimes people get the short end of the stick. And that other question was clustering care for patients with increased ICP. Yes, so that you really, really want to think about how you cluster your care. And I'm a little more lenient with stuff being early and late with patients with increased ICP, because I'm not trying to wake them up and overstimulate them. So I'm always doing a turn, an assessment, and meds all at the same time. I never go in and turn and then 20 minutes later go do oral care, and then an hour later do an assessment. Even if I'm doing something with early or late, I'm consolidating care as much as possible with those patients. You just got to prioritize, and keeping their ICP is much more important than maybe even turning them. Like, maybe you can go every 3 hours or something like that if your mattress, like I know our mattresses in our critical care, they really can go every 3 hours without being turned. So like that, you really got to prioritize. The ICP in their brain is probably almost as important as it can get. And that's way more important than making sure you flush their Dobhoff tube to give them some scheduled colace, you know. So I make sure to, you know, very specific times, and I'm not turning them unless I have a really, really good reason. I think there was another question, but I didn't see it. Maybe do one more here. Or not, that's fine too. Meal breaks, oh, yeah, it is leaving the unit for meals. Okay, yeah, sometimes that's really hard, especially if things are going downhill fast, and sometimes you just gotta order a pizza and nobody leaves. But sometimes you really do have to say, okay, nobody... I'm going to post a summary, yes, right here. I'm gonna put it on my blog this week, so don't feel like you gotta like review it and write it down. It'll be on the thing. My staff patient ratio usually is 1 nurse to 2 patients. That's usually what it is, but sometimes it's 3. And then sometimes if the patient's really, really sick, it'll be 1 to 1, but that doesn't happen that often. It's usually 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. But so with meal breaks, it's really tough because you almost have to advocate for yourself. Like, I'm going to pass out. I got to eat something. I know my patient I need to restart an IV. And I know I need to switch out my IV lines that are due. But you know what? I got to eat. And I'm just going to do it. Like, sorry. You know, not even going to say sorry. I'm a human that needs to eat and go to the bathroom. And I'm going to do that even if somebody needs whatever. That's something where it's really good. Having a good unit culture is so important to support each other and almost force each other to go to lunch. And if I need to leave the unit to breathe, I'm allowed to do that because that's totally unrealistic and inhumane to just expect someone to just go for 12, 16 hours at a time. So it's, I think it's important too to treat other people whenever, like if I expect to have people encourage me to go to lunch, I need to do that the same with others. Like if I know it's a good time for my coworker to go to, do you have a charge? No, we do not. We don't, our charge nurse has a full assignment. Yeah, so you really have to advocate for yourself and then advocate for your coworkers and say, hey, you're going to go to lunch. I just ate. You're going to go and I'm going to watch your patients, and really help each other out so that you can get off the unit and eat something. I think everybody needs to have that time. If anybody else has any questions, otherwise I might sign off for you guys. I have one more sip here. Say no. If someone wants you to watch their patients and you're drowning, I absolutely say no. It depends how bad I'm drowning, and I have had to tell people, hey man, now is not a good time. I have so many things and both my patients aren't stable or whatever. You really gotta use your judgment. If you're drowning and they need, you know, say no. Hey man, I really need some help right now. And then if you can help me do blank blank, I would love to watch your patients if you can help me get blank done. That's a kind of a good way to, you know, because clearly if they're trying to go to lunch and if you know they're having an easier day and not helping out, you know, you could ask them. We do not have a monitor tech. We do not have a secretary. So that kind of stuff, you don't want to be like mean because you don't want to like kind of cause a rift. But if you can do something like make it like, hey, if you help me out with these couple things, I would love, love, love to watch your patients. You know, that way you can kind of at least go from like completely drowning to kind of have your head above water. And yeah, so that's our ratios. I guess I didn't specify that. There's usually 1 CNA to 8 patients, 1 nurse to 2 patients, no secretary, no monitor tech is what I usually work with. Any other questions? Otherwise, and this video will be on YouTube, and my notes will be on my blog. I just don't know if I can get them done tomorrow. I'll do it, but I'll try to do that as soon as possible. Next week, I am going to do neuro ICU meds. Not a lot, just I want to go in depth on a few common ones, okay? So that's going to be, hopefully, that's going to be next Monday at 9. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining me, and cheers. I hope you guys have a wonderful night, and go UNC.